Welcome to Alasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. Hey everybody, I am back. As you can hear, I am still not 100% back to normal with my voice. I'm actually having some good days and bad days. The other day I had to run out of town and run some errands, and I was thinking the entire day, I was like, oh, my voice is back to normal. I feel great, like this is good. And the next day I woke up and it was probably the worst it's ever been, and I sounded like I had laryngitis or something. So, I'm probably going to have to clear my throat a couple of times during this. I apologize. Like that. I'll try and do it away from the mic. I'm not quite savvy enough to go through here and probably delete all those. So I apologize in advance if you can hear any of those. I feel good. I feel fine. Maybe getting a little winded, doing some things around the house. Like I said, we're going on almost a month now. Actually, by the time this releases, it probably will be a month since I first, basically started realizing, like, I think I feel sick, and, I'm not running a fever. I'm not, other than a little congestion, I feel fine. I was a little concerned. I keep hearing about this long COVID and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be none of the symptoms that I have currently, which is pretty much just the congestion in my voice, seem to really have that much to do with it. I mean, I guess it's a symptom, but it's people with the long COVID are having a much worse time than I am. So I don't know what to do. I kind of am in a kind of holding pattern. I'm like, well, I'll wait and see what happens. But at the same time, I'm like, man, do I need to go to an ear, nose, and throat specialist and find out what's going on? I don't want to sound like this for forever. So I don't know. It's a weird situation to be in. I always kind of thought maybe, I've always had to wear glasses and contacts for my eyes. I always thought maybe there was a possibility that I might go blind one day. As I get older, I can kind of tell my hearing isn't really what it used to be. I got to ask, especially my wife, to repeat things quite a bit. But I never really thought, it never really entered my mind that I might not be able to talk, that I would lose my voice. So, it's interesting. And it's especially ironic now that I am a podcaster. So I sat down with the intention of recording 2 episodes today, and I'm about 3 minutes in, and I can already tell I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know. I might try. Obviously these are going to be a little shorter than usual, just for the fact that I'm not going to be able to carry on for an hour like this. And you guys probably don't appreciate, you probably don't like hearing me like this anyway. I probably sound kind of weird. But anyway, I've been putting this off for a long time because I really wanted to do this episode. And I wanted to be back to normal when I did it. But obviously, it's not just going to happen. I keep putting it off because I'm like, well, I'll wait till I feel better. I'll wait till I feel better. And I got to get it out, man. I got to get it out there. We're already in March. So I feel like I gotta put something, one, I got to create some content and get it out there. 2, I need to get this out there because I want to see what we can do as a community. And what this show is about is basically, earlier, if you listen to my, not my last little short episode where I told everybody I had COVID, but the one before that, where I was talking about that show, the show that will not be named anymore, the one that we're not going to talk about anymore. I was mentioning how one of the cast members had posted something in a local community group here, and how it had just floored me. It was so disrespectful to the local police. I'm not sure if maybe there were some of the things he might have said in that posting might have been aimed toward me. I'm not sure. I wasn't a police officer anymore, so I don't know. As most of you know, I was a police officer for 15 years. Most of it here on the Kenai Peninsula. I recently retired. I kind of thought that it was probably a good time to get out. I wasn't real happy with my financial situation with my retirement. I didn't think that I was going to be able to keep doing it for as long as I was supposed to do it. They took away everybody's pension basically back. It was actually story time. Right about the time I got my first job as an actual police officer on the St. Paul Island, Alaska. It was that year that they had changed the retirement. They passed the legislation to change it. And they were changing it to something called Tier 4. Well, Tier 3 still had a pension system going. And I had put in my application, gone through all the steps, gotten hired. And because it was such a remote community, basically my time, even though I was kind of running around, I was kind of working already because I was running around, like they had me running errands, like picking up uniforms and stuff that I would be wearing. And they had me doing stuff basically that they probably should have been paying me for now that I look back on it. But my official time didn't start until basically I got there and signed the paperwork. And I remember the chief, who's long since retired, called me and he goes, "Hey, they're changing the retirement here in I think it was 2 weeks or something." And he says, "If you could get out here and start before then, you'll be in the Tier 3, which is a much better retirement." And, I was young and I was moving my entire family out there and I wasn't thinking about retirement at that time. I was just like, man, I can't come out there any sooner. Like, we've got a plan. Like, this is the day we're going to do this. This is the day we're going to do that. This is the day we're leaving to come there. I can't really, I don't want to deviate from my plan. And, hindsight's always 2020. And anyway, we went out there and we got started and things, it started my law enforcement career, and I had some pretty interesting experiences there that maybe I'll share here one day. But I'd literally just missed out on a 20-year pension by 2 weeks. And, I'm doing the forehead slap, the face palm. And I didn't really kind of realize what that meant at the time. I knew it meant I'll just have to work a little longer. But I didn't realize exactly what that entailed. So anyway, I went from basically having to work 20 years and being able to retire to having to work basically until I was 59, until I was 60 years old, no matter how old. So it doesn't matter how many years I put in. I had to reach an age, not a time in service. So I was young and wasn't really thinking about that stuff. And then, the older I got, the longer I went along, I was like, man, I wish I'd have got in there on that Tier 3. See, if I was Tier 3, I would probably still be working because I'd only have about 5 more years to go. But under the retirement system that I was in, I would literally have, 16 more years to go, which is, that's a career in law enforcement. I would literally only be halfway done. And, I wasn't happy with the way things were going. I wasn't happy with there was a lot of things I wasn't happy with. Obviously, just turn on the news. You can see a lot of it. And I was lucky enough that we were in a position where my wife was like, well, if you want to go, you can go. So I left, and now I do, I've got a couple of other things that I do. This is one of them. And, I've got my reselling business, and occasionally, every so often, I'll miss it, or I'll miss something about it. I don't really miss it like on a daily level. Like I'm not sitting at home and hear sirens and be like, oh man, I wish I could go out there. But there are certain aspects about it that I miss, and I feel bad for the guys that are still doing it, because I know a lot of them, especially even some of them that I worked with, would leave in a heartbeat if they could. If they were in a financial situation where they could leave, they would go. In fact, my partner that I worked with quite a bit, he's a little bit younger than me, but he actually started a little bit before I did. We actually left almost at about the same time, for many of the same reasons. And I think he misses it a little bit more than I do. We text every once in a while, and I don't know. I still have an affinity. I didn't walk out the door bitter and hating the government or the police or anything like that. I think it's a noble profession. I think that a lot of people don't understand what they go through and what they do and what they have to see. If you think about it, have you ever like called the police and said like, hey, my son just got into the college he wanted to, you want to come over and have some cake with us? Or, you don't call the police and be like, hey, I just got some really good news. I just wanted to let you guys know. It's one of the few jobs out there where basically from the minute you clock in or show up to the minute you go home, you're dealing with people at their worst. They're either at their worst behavior, or they're having the worst moment of their life, to have to contact you, or they're having, some kind of crisis, or they need some kind of help. There's never very many positive things that you see in this job or that job. I'm probably gonna slip in between first and third person while I talk about this, because in my mind I'm still a cop. So don't get confused. But if I say we or me or something like that talking about it, don't get confused. I am retired, but yeah, it's a profession that not most people don't really think about it unless you need it. And it was kind of I've always talked about how there's a lot of parallels between the Bigfoot community and police work, or at least those Bigfoot research and police investigations. And in fact, I'm actually writing a book about it right now. But there are so many parallels with just how things go, what people think and stuff like that, and just how many overlaps there are, even though they have two. One is could arguably be considered scientific research, and the other is public service. But there are a lot of parallels in the way that you can do things, and you have a lot of the same actions with both, with collection of evidence, documentation, stuff like that. So there are a lot of parallels between Bigfooting and police work, whether you really acknowledge it or not. But this Facebook comment that I'm talking about was one of the first times where kind of the politics of today and Bigfooting kind of intermingled for me. Obviously, this gentleman has a distaste for law enforcement, as a lot of people in kind of the fringes of science do. A lot of the conspiracy-minded people, they think that police are there to cover up information, and they work for the government and all that. And I've addressed that several times over. And especially, municipal police officers have especially rural municipal police officers have very little interaction or contact with the federal government at all, really, let alone like the FBI and stuff. There's a couple of times where it's overlapped, and I've got to work with the FBI, but for the most part, it almost never happens. And, if you go back and listen to that the second part of the that episode, you can really, you could really tell that it bothered me, what was said. And it really, I didn't like it. And I actually lost a little bit of sleep over it. I tossed and turned quite a bit over it. And I really shouldn't have. Like, it shouldn't have probably even registered with me. I shouldn't have taken 2 seconds out of my life to worry about it. But I did, because here's somebody that is in an arguably successful Bigfoot show. At that moment, he was very popular. They've got this Facebook group going. All these people are sending them accolades and congratulating them, and we want more, we love you. And here he is, spouting this bullshit. So it was hard for me. It was a little hard on me. That's what she said. And I actually lost a little bit of sleep over it. Like, man, what can I do? Like, I don't have the reach and the grasp that this guy does, obviously. Like, I have, a few loyal listeners and followers, and I appreciate you and I love you guys, but I don't have the thousands of people's ear like he does, even though he was spouting this bullshit in a private Facebook group. Still, it's, screenshots live forever, man. I'm sure somebody besides me got a screenshot of it. And, at any moment it could find its way out into the wild. I'm not saying that I'm going to do that. I wouldn't do that. But, somebody out there's got it. I know for a fact, probably some of the local law enforcement here have it saved, because it kind of irked them too. So anyway, I lost a lot of sleep over it. It really bugged me. I try and stay away from drama here. In fact, that's, other than a couple of things I've addressed here and there, that's probably the biggest drama that, I've dealt with, is just the existence of that whole thing and that show. So I was like, man, what can I do? And, I kind of made the decision before I was even done, with my review of the show. I was like, I can't support this network, this channel. And then when that come about, I was definitely like, I can't support anything that supports this guy or has, gainfully employs this dude. So, and that's about the only thing you can do anymore. You can't, you kind of have to vote with your dollars. So as soon as I was done with that series, I canceled my Discovery Plus account, and I'm going to take the money that I would spend normally on Discovery Plus. I'm going to take that money and I'm going to donate it to a law enforcement charity. It's called COPS, COPS. It's Concerns of Police Survivors. It's a nonprofit organization, and they provide resources to assist families that have had a family member that was a law enforcement officer that died in the line of duty. So that's going to be my first donation. I'm going to take 6 months worth of Discovery Plus money and put it toward the Concerns of Police Survivors. And then later in the year, I'm going to take the last 6 months worth of subscription money, and I'm going to donate that to another law enforcement charity. I haven't really decided which one yet. I'm kind of leaning towards something with canines, because they don't get a lot of the equipment that they need, like vests and stuff like that. So anyway, I realize, I don't have thousands of followers or listeners, well, maybe thousands of listeners, but I certainly don't have thousands of subscribers or followers on social media. And I don't necessarily expect everybody to, join me like, Spartacus and throw your Discovery Plus money at law enforcement charities. But, every little bit helps. And like I said, law enforcement is having a really, really tough time recently in the last few years. There's a lot of people that are stuck in that profession that would be leaving if they could. And, they're literally risking their lives, for our safety every day. I was always one of those guys that kind of like, don't call me a hero. Don't put us up on a pedestal. We're people just like you. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to realize, there are people out there who get paid in some cases woefully inadequately to run towards gunfire while you're running away from it. And I mean, I've been in a situation before where I'm like, oh, there's somebody with a gun over there, let's go. And you go over there, you're going towards the place where everybody else is going away. And, a lot of people you just don't think about it. You go about your business, you go get your groceries, you come home, you watch your Discovery Plus, and you don't realize that there's people out there that are, willing to put themselves in harm's way so that you can do all that. And like I said, we've already had a really hard year this year. If you go to the Officer Down Memorial page, you can see we've already had 67 line of duty deaths in 2022. I mean, I'm going to let that sink in for just a second. 67. This is March. Now, granted, some of those deaths were from COVID, but how many of those people got exposed to COVID during the course of their job? Probably most of them. And, there's a lot of people, I don't want to hear any arguments about, oh, they should have got vaccinated or this or that. There's a lot of people that were vaccinated and unvaccinated that got it and died. And a lot of times, you can't just say, no, I'm not going to go over there and talk to that guy. You got to do it. So 67 line of duty deaths this year. And that is just phenomenal. That is crazy. It is unacceptable. So hopefully, my little chunk of change that I'm taking from my Discovery Plus subscription, hopefully that can help one of those families, one of those 67 families, buy some groceries, do something nice to help get their lives back together. And like I said, I don't expect it to really take off. The way I fear, I'll be lucky if 2 more people cancel their Discovery Plus subscriptions and donate that money to law enforcement charity. I feel happy if 2 more people did it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a little hashtag on social media called Bigfoot Backs the Blue. I've got some artwork that was generously donated by my good friend at the Bigfoot Art Gallery, Rob Roy Menzies. He donated that artwork. He that doesn't necessarily mean that he shares my views on this, but he was nice enough to draw something up for me real quick, and I'm going to use that as the basically the poster child for this little charity drive that I'm trying to start up, and we're going to get it out there, and we're going to see what happens. Hopefully, we can get some people to donate some much needed funds to some people that need it, that have lost a loved one in the line of duty. And then we'll do maybe a follow-up later on in the year, and we'll talk about it again, and we'll see just how much of our voices have carried, and see what's happened. So again, this isn't a call to action for everybody to cancel their Discovery Plus subscriptions, although I think it's probably the right thing to do if you support law enforcement. But I understand, there are other factors at play here. Maybe, you've have some kind of vested interest in it. Your favorite show's on there. You don't really want to make that sacrifice. But for me, I think I was done. It was the right thing to do. I didn't really watch the channel that much anyway. And I don't really think they're going to be showing or producing anything that is going to bring me back. It's just their quality of programming as far as Bigfoot programming has really kind of gone downhill in my opinion. And I just think that my money could be better spent elsewhere instead of going towards them. So anyway, guys, hashtag Bigfoot Backs the Blue. If you want to screenshot your charity of choice or your donation that you make, and throw that up on social media. I will share and retweet and just highlight everything that I can that I see with that hashtag that is doing some good out there. We'll try and get something going on the Alasquatch podcast website where maybe you can put in a code, and maybe you don't necessarily get a percentage off your order, but a percentage of your order will get donated, or we'll do something like that. And I think that's the right thing to do. I feel like that is the correct response. I wanted to talk for just a minute about line of duty deaths and how it's affected me. There were 2 officers that were killed in Hoona, Alaska, which is in southeast Alaska. And that was Officer Matthew Tokuoka. I think I just butchered his name. And Sergeant Anthony Wallace. They were actually killed by gunfire during the same incident. And that was in 2010. And after that, that was a very small department. I think they only had about 4 officers. So basically 50% of their department got taken away right then and there. And myself and my partner, the officer I was mentioning earlier, we actually went out there and worked for a couple of weeks to help supplement their manpower for their department. So we actually volunteered to go out there, work for a couple of weeks after those 2 officers gave their lives. And that was kind of a humbling experience. You go out there and you're working in this community that one of the community members had basically just taken these officers' lives. And it was interesting just to see how friendly and welcoming the community was. Generally, a lot of times in smaller communities like that in Alaska, they're a little leery of strangers. And I felt like we were pretty well welcome out there. They treated us good, took good care of us. And I think I was really fortunate to do that. It was a really interesting experience. And we got to help out the department in their time of need. And that was awesome. And the other one I want to talk about is Sergeant Alan Brandt from the Fairbanks Police Department. I have a couple of good friends on the Fairbanks Police Department. I don't know that I actually had ever met Sergeant Brandt in person. I might have. Alaska's it's the biggest state, but when it comes to population, it's one of the smallest states. And so when you're in a niche community like law enforcement, there's a lot of overlap. And, it's possible Sergeant Brandt and I had been in a class together at some time and, maybe just never had the chance to really sit down and talk. He was killed in 2016. And I remember my wife and I were at the Anchorage Hospital. My brother-in-law had a heart attack, and we were there visiting him. And he's doing okay. He's still out there kicking. And I remember thinking, like, man, I bet Sergeant Brandt is here because I heard he had been flown to Anchorage. So my wife and I kind of wandered down the halls a little bit, and I actually ran into the Fairbanks chaplain, who I knew. I actually went to the academy with him, and he was there with Sergeant Brandt's wife and another APD officer. And I walked in and the chaplain knew me, and we talked, and I, told that Miss Brandt that I was sorry for what happened, and I hoped that he pulled through. Told her that if she needed anything, that we'd be willing to take care of her. I think we offered to go get them something to eat, and they had just ate, or they had food on the way. And he actually came out of the hospital. He came out, in stable condition. He showed up at city council meeting a week or so later. He accepted some kind of award or something. I don't remember, or a Medal of Valor or something that they gave him. And he had to go back in for another surgery not too long after that to It was a continuation of the surgery they had begun, I think, when he first got injured, and he did not survive that surgery. So that was real heartbreaking, especially when you found out, oh, okay, he's okay, and then it turned out he wasn't. So, I tell you those stories just to give you a sense of, you get up and go to work one day and maybe for whatever reason you just don't get to come home. So that's what a lot of these guys and women face every day. They're not appreciated. They don't get enough credit. And it breaks my heart. And then especially to see somebody with a lot of influence, somebody that's just kind of coming out into the Bigfoot community and has influence over people, to make those kind of statements that he did. It just, it disgusts me. It makes me sick. And I feel like I have to do something. And, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I don't know what publicly arguing or fighting with the dude's going to do. So I am going to, vote with my dollars. I'm going to take my dollars away from his, place of employment, and I'm going to put them somewhere where I think they're going to do the most good, which is, the concerns of police survivors. And it would make me so happy if you would do that too. And, just tell a police officer that you appreciate what they do. Like I said, every day they see people at their worst. So maybe if you could give them a little taste of somebody at their best, they might appreciate it, and it might make a difference in their day. So I'm going to end it here before I completely lose my voice. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode. I know it's kind of a downer. I'm going to come back with something a little bit more positive. And I've got some really cool cryptid stuff coming up, some Alaska cryptid stuff. But like I said earlier, in the other episode, I'm kind of waiting until things get a little bit back to normal, meaning my voice. I don't sound like I'm whispering or Batman or something. So this is usually the part of the podcast where I promote my stuff. I'm not going to do that. Instead, please go to a police charity and give them a couple bucks, $2, $5, $10, whatever you want, whatever you feel you can afford to give. Maybe send a card to your local police department, thank them for what they do, and try and make a difference in somebody's life that has so much negativity to deal with on a daily basis. So anyway, guys, I'm going to put some links also at in the show notes for some of those charities if you want to check them out. And remember, screenshot it, post it on Instagram, Facebook, something like that. Hashtag Bigfoot backs the blue, and we'll share it. We'll get it out there, and just thank you to everybody that works or has worked in law enforcement. I know it's pretty much a thankless job, but there are people out there that appreciate you. It's hard to get recognition sometimes. I'll tell you this really quick story before I go, because it kind of sums everything up. So a couple of years ago, when this, or it was it 2020? I guess it was 2 years ago, when all this Black Lives Matter, BLM stuff was going on. Here in our tiny town in Alaska, we had a BLM protest, which is hilarious because I don't even know how many African Americans we have living here. It's not very many at all. I have, in my time here, I exponentially arrested more white, Native, Hispanic, so many more of of those races than I did black people, but that's neither here nor there. So they had the little rally here, which is fine. And it was just down the street from the police station. I'm sitting in my office and I can hear them like yelling all these chants about how bad the police are and everything. And it really got to me. It was really kind of, demoralizing. And then a couple of days later, I come into work and there's all these little signs around the police department. Like, we love HPD, we love the police. You guys are great. And all these happy little signs and stuff. And, I was working day shift at the time. And I think I worked late the night before or something, and they weren't there when I left. And I remember asking somebody, like, well, when did they? So these people, which God bless them, like I'm glad they did it. It was a great thing that they did. But these people that brought in the support the police signs, they literally did it under the cover of darkness. Like, they brought these signs in and put them up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if they did that so that they wouldn't get harassed or so nobody would know who they were. But even though it was a very touching gesture, and they meant well and it was great, it always stuck with me with, like, how these people that are against us are out on the side of the road in the middle of the day, shaking signs and screaming at the top of their lungs. And the people that support us literally came in like thieves in the night under the cover of darkness and put their little signs up saying they loved us. And I was, part of me, I was thankful for it. Don't get me wrong. But another part of me was like, man, like, why couldn't they have, like, made a public statement or made, like, at least done it in the middle of the day. But they came in under the cover of darkness and did it. So, anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, even if you want to send an anonymous note or something like that, that's great. But it means a lot if, you can look them in the eye and tell them you appreciate them. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. I appreciate you.